This is Nick from the Nerd Frenzy podcast. How's everyone doing today? Brent, my lover.
Dude,
You tricked me and I still love you. How you doing, bud?
What's that song from the 90s? Be my lover, won't you? You know, remember that one? Oh,
Of course
man.
I do. La Bouche.
La Bouche. Yeah, dude.
Da, da, dee, da,
Oh.
da,
Yeah,
da,
that's the part I couldn't remember.
I can literally
Oh,
sing the whole song, like all the humming and everything perfectly. That's how much I know that song.
was a great tune. It was the start of my love affair for electro music was 90s house music. They only played like 3 house songs in total on the radio, and that was one of them. And what a banger, ladies and gentlemen. What a great tune.
Oh, there was, like the everybody dance now. Like that time. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And then luckily Night the Roxbury brought it back a little bit. And they're like, well, you know what? Those are fun. Let's do that. So I got to enjoy it again.
God, those are just, man, what a time to be alive, the 90s. Anyway, Nick, it's good to see you again this week, dude. So glad
Absolutely,
to
my
be
friend.
here.
We get to talk about something I know you're really excited about today. And I'm so giddy about it.
Yeah, I can't wait. We were doing the stream earlier, and I was already bitching about it, so it'll be fun. And I shouldn't say bitching. I was just expressing my feelings about the Harry Potterness and the fandom, not the fandom per se. Just I am not as big a fan of Harry Potter. I'm not a fan of it really at all. There's just it doesn't sit in my realm of personalized fantasy things I enjoy. However, that does not mean that what I'm going to say is nearly even close to right or correct or even within any semblance of an okay opinion. I am probably so minimalized as far as like the margins go that I'm probably just talking out of my ass as far as Harry Potter goes.
Spoiler alert, everyone. Brent is an asshole.
Yeah, spoiler alert. I told Crystal I'd be nice. I said I wasn't even going to be mean because Crystal has, long ago, I expressed my distaste for Harry Potter. And in this house, we are a bit of a split home. She likes and enjoys Harry Potter very much. And I, as stated, clearly do not. So she has heard me. I have given Harry Potter both barrels right to the teeth plenty of times. But that's not going to be the case today. I'm just going to express what I think and feel, and we're going to talk about Harry Potter. And I think that's still a really cool conversation to have because it's clearly monumental.
I would prefer, be honest with me, buddy. Be honest. I want you to throw it all at me. Obviously, there's no reason to be
kind or gentle or posh. No, I'm
no, tell me exactly what you mean, but don't you dare say anything wrong.
It hit one side of my ear and my brain like took a moment to process what the hell you just said. That's great. But beyond that,
right now.
I want to share a fun fact that Crystal just told me because I think it's neat. Apparently, Harry Potter is the most written of fan fiction in the world. Is that correct, Crystal? The most. And the second right behind it, though, ladies and gentlemen, you'd never guess it. It's Twilight. So if you're looking for more in those universes, you want to read some poorly written.
Don't say that they're the same universe.
They're not the same, but if you want to,
one's good and one's not good.
If you want to live inside of those individual universes more, you can go to fanfiction.com or whatever it is, and you can check it out, and there's plenty of stuff there for you to consume. And I just think that's a neat fact. So that's all. I just wanted to share that before we got into it. So
everyone, besides all of that, we get to talk about some fun stuff too today.
Yes.
We both are excited to talk about Wanda-vision.
Yes, we are. And I think it's very important. What's up, Davsum? I think it's very important that we annotate our expression last week, and I think Nick could agree with this. Wanda-vision was not our favorite. I think that's fair to say. I think we both have
talked about it for about 20 minutes last week about how we did not care for it.
Yeah, we both definitely wandered into the territory of like, look, neither one of us are really feeling it. And I think we should maybe recap a little bit on why we weren't feeling it and then express our opinions where we're at this week. So why don't you go ahead and start us off? Why weren't you digging WandaVision to start?
So first of all, I heard that it was going to be different. So I was expecting different. I was expecting I Love Lucy with a bunch of mind weird games. It took way too long. Nothing happened pretty much the first 3 episodes. At the very end of each one, there was like a 3-second little like, oh, what does that mean? And then it go right back to pretty much the same old like, hey guys, how's it going? I'm this, Wanda, and this is my husband, Vision. Ding! And it was charming at first, but then nothing started happening. I'm like, okay, guys, I need something more. I'm losing it. And so, that by the end of the third episode, it showed like a minute and a half of spoiler alert, a minute and a half of that lady saying Ultron and saying your brother died, and then all of a sudden they all snap out of it, and acting happens, like real acting, like not like, oh, that's that, kind of silly on purpose acting, but real acting. And I'm like, oh, that was kind of refreshing, but still, no. And then,
I like the way you put that,
uh,
actually. I find
yeah, thank
that
you.
that help expresses. I was in the same boat with Nick. It was fascinating to see how true they were to their source material. I think that's very important, and it really needs to be annotated. They went the full mile, man. String props, live audience, that type of stuff. They really did the whole thing as it would have been shot back in the day, and I think that's fascinating. And I'm very impressed by that. However, all that being said, and even I expected something a little different. I didn't know it'd be this drastically different. I thought it'd be like a little creepy and a little weird, but that'd be it, right? Seeing how different it was, the reason I didn't fall in love with it, like you said, is there wasn't a lot of story points for me to grasp to yet. And we kind of talked about this a little bit. It felt very, I call it USA sensationalized TV, where we get our base level story right out the gate in the first episode, and then we watch 9 episodes of filler of him saving cats from trees, and then we get to actually get a little nugget of extra on the 10th episode, and then they rinse and repeat this for 20 seasons and extend these shows out. And that's a little bit of how I felt at first with WandaVision, because the episodes were so genuinely unique to what they're mimicking that I didn't feel any story being done. And on top of it, now that you said it, this is not me saying they were being bad actors. They were not. They were being perfect actors. They were mimicking exactly what film, TV, whatever you want to call it, back in the day was. So they were doing a very good job. It just wasn't engaging for me. I just wasn't into it. And that was hard to sit through the 3 episodes. Now,
it was a chore. It was a chore.
A little bit for me, and I'm glad to hear from you personally as well. The 3rd episode, the last about 5 minutes, finally did have me going, oh, what the hell? Because you got a little sprinkling, like you said, in the first 2, and you got these little snippets, but they weren't anything that engaged me. They were weird, but I wasn't like, okay, cool. But then when they finally mentioned the Ultron thing, and you see her get ejected out of the place, and everything kind of begins to build around, like, what the hell is happening? There's this, like, Fortress-esque mentality of this war quarantine zone and tents and all this military crap. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? What is this? And I loved, and now we're going to talk about this new episode. The reason I loved it is because it finally gave an understanding and purpose to all the little extra scenes we were seeing, and that is actually what sold me more than anything. When we got to see the cut again from the first episode where they're watching the TV, and it's an ominous thing where someone has like a notepad and stuff, and it zooms out of this old TV, and then we're cut. That's the end of episode 1. And then we see that same shot, but with understanding what's going on in the most recent episode. That made me appreciate it so much more. Then I cared about episode 1, and I found that really fascinating. Did you find any, like, how you called back to the episode at that moment, went, oh, now I really like that way more because I see what's going on? Or did it just, would the final, like, culmination of what's going on really get you moving?
Wait, honestly, what got me going immediately, and I even sent you a text right after I saw the opening shot. And the reason why I said something like, dude, this opening shot is excellent. And I said, I hope the rest of it's as good as that. And then, so what I liked about it immediately, bud, is the first 3 episodes, corny. Like I said, everyone was doing their job perfectly, but I was not engaged. It took them way too long to get me interested. And then all of a sudden, the opening shot, you see her in a hospital, and she's like, hey, she's all looking around. There's hell everywhere. And she's like, well, this is busy. She walks up to the nurse and she goes, hey, where's my mom at? What room? I don't see her. And then she's like, oh, honey, your mom's dead. And I'm seeing like, and I'm watching her the clock, and she's like, no. And I'm seeing like this actor from the last 3 episodes kind of being like, hey, gee, guys. And then, but you see like quality acting. I'm like, what the hell? This is awesome. And then whenever she says, oh no, she's been dead for 3 years, cancer. And then all of a sudden you start realizing they just put this whole story with the Avengers and everything. It's now like congruent with each other, and everything's like parallel. It's all starting to make sense. I'm like, that's good at least. And then the rest of the episode happened, and excellent.
Yeah, I agree. What's it called where they return? The snap? Is it Crystal, what's it called when they come back from the Avengers? The snap, where she returned?
In the universe, they call it the blip.
The blip, there we go. The blip. When the blip is happening and you see her reform and she's running the hospital. Number one, it's just great to nod that we're still hanging out there a little bit. After so many like estranged episodes of trying to figure out what the hell we're seeing, to then have like that solid understanding of like the blip. Remember that? Remember when everybody came back? Remember that, you
Yes.
guys? It was very nice to have that nice solid ground to stand on, so we could understand time-wise without getting too deep into it around the realm we're at. Right? We now know this immediately happens at the moment, at that particular moment. Once Tony Stark did his little snap, now that's where we're picking up technically within that shot. So we're good.
Yeah, we're picking up in between, like before the last Spider-Man movie, Far From Home, and then after Avengers Endgame.
Yep, and that's
Right?
good, and that's good and
Yeah.
comfortable for us. And then I think
And
on top of that, oh, go ahead.
oh, no, and I think the reason why, first of all, when you start doing that, when you make everything cohesive with each other, obviously it's going to make the story better, anyways. But she, in the first 3 episodes, I mean, obviously I could tell they were trying to groom her for something, but she was, like everyone else, unimpressive.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you see her with real human emotions. Well, first of all, you see her like freaking out whenever she just said the wrong things to Scarlet Witch. But when you see her like find out her mom just passed and find out like, oh, I'm going through this weird time, it was refreshing, because I was like, okay, this is what I was expecting, a movie quality TV show. They did it with Mandalorian. Disney starting to realize that they need the Kevin Feige's and all those kind of people to just keep on going with this wonderfulness they're going. And they don't want to ham it up, because that that's when we get ham, we get something like the Han Solo movie, which is okay but not great. So they're learning from their mistakes, and I thought there's no way they're going to learn from WandaVision now, because it sucks. And then all of a sudden, the episode keeps on continuing and continuing. The part whenever they're the what's the stand-up comedian guy's name, the Johnny Woo or Jimmy
Woo, yeah, Woo. The
Yeah,
dude-
yeah.
yeah.
I like him in Fresh Off the Boat, and he was of course hilarious in the interview as that one guy. What's his name? Kim Jong Un? I don't know, something like that. And anyway, he's great, and he was he was charming in this. He was kind of doing his typical thing, and I thought, okay, well that's kind of fun. And then all of a sudden, Darcy or whatever, I forget her name. She comes in and she's fun from the Thor movies. And she's witty and she's charming, and then she's kind of connected with the story too. And I'm thinking, it's all finally happening, man. It's all finally happening.
When it all finally started to come together, and again, I feel
It's
like
still not together at this point. Still not together at this point. Still like we're still like, but what's happening? Who's controlling this? So yeah, go ahead.
but that's the part I enjoy now. I'm okay with the mystery still, so long as now we're going to progress through the mystery. So perfect examples. Let's say the next 3 episodes are more dinking around, traveling through like cinema universe, so to speak, or cinema timelines. I know how I am. I'm gonna immediately fall off if we just jump right back to like an episode 2 or an episode 1 type thing. I would be a little more comfortable with an episode 3 where they give us a little piece, but collectively what I would like to see now is the progression of the story from where we're at. We should all be universally caught up together, understanding what's happening and what's going on, or at least again theorizing on everything that's going on. And we should be at the same position our characters we just watched get introduced are, right? Where our Woo and our Darcy and everybody else, we know exactly what they know. So that's nice, and so we're all unified now. So I really want to see the show continue forward basically from that point. I don't want to jump around between the cinema-esque TV show stuff. I don't want any of that. I want to keep moving forward now and see what's happening, because I think the little blips we got during this, especially of like what Vision looked like, I think there's a lot of really cool nods where they're giving us a lot of information about, what we can comfortably suspect right now. I think before this episode, a lot of the theories are out there, which are really, really neat to read, and they're really, really fun to poke around on. I think a lot of them were just pulling a lot, not necessarily from the dark, but you had to really be into the show to know what's happening. However, I think like seeing Vision in the state he's in without looking pretty and nice with the stone, suddenly there's a divot in his head at this one point. It's only like one scene and it's very brief, but that little underlying, I don't know, awkwardness, strangeness, and seeing what it could be,
all,
that's
Brent. Well, how I was looking at it, my friend, was he's dead still.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I think he's dead as hell.
Yeah,
I think that's his corpse.
So what I'm thinking is, and my wife, we're thinking that because they said no, she's doing all this, right? I mean, so I think she's just putting herself in like some weird like time area where no one can mess with her because she's hurting because her lover just died, and I think she's just trying to keep it alive.
I think there's that to it. I think it's.
You think? I hope there's more, but I think that's why. Because I mean, right now she's kind of, in a weird way, kind of the villain of the story.
And I like that, but I don't think they'll stick with that concept for her. I think because it's Disney, I still think they'll be. Crystal has informed me more on this than I myself have gotten to dig in. But there is supposed to be a character who helped her find her powers and stuff. And there's like a theory out there that perhaps one of the individuals within the town is this individual that helped her learn her powers and is maybe manipulating this a bit and pulling the strings in the background to keep Wanda doing what she's doing for some ulterior motive for herself. And I think that totally works. I definitely think, and Crystal kind of put this out there, that Wanda is probably still in some semblance of a prison, but it's a very comfortable prison for her, like you said. She's in her own safe bubble to a certain degree, escaping
She's in
the trauma.
safe space right now.
Yeah, of what happened.
Actual literal safe space. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I really like where she goes, no, I have it all under control, honey. Don't worry about it. But we've seen that it's not, right? We've seen like the dude sawing right through the thing. We've seen like the weird snippets of it not being in control, of it not being okay. And I really, really enjoy that extra side for us as the viewer to see the slips and the cracks where Vision is still stuck and he can't see all this, or maybe even doesn't always get to remember it per se. That we do. We get to know. We know that the neighbors are misbehaving. They're not acting right. We know that this whole thing has been weird. That dude almost choking to death and her almost letting it happen. All these dark little twisted moments that the things are not in control. And I find that scary for Wanda, and for me as a viewer it's engaging because that's the horror side of it I kind of like. I like that it has this little horror bite to it, and I like that now we have context around the strangeness, a genuine solid context we can really begin to pick apart rather than, I feel like, grabbing at all the straws. We've got a lot less straws to grab at now, and we're going to figure out how to put them together, and I think that's very nice.
Well, like I'm already thinking like what it could be. Like I was thinking that I watched it again today. And I was thinking when I watched it a second time, whenever the neighbors were talking to Vision, they all said, like the dude that was standing there, his neighbor, says, "Hey, she is, she's an outsider. She doesn't live here. She's not like us." And he said like us, and he kind of this little thing like you, Vision, me, and this my wife. And then when they were talking about in the real world, they were actors, right?
Well, in the real world, like, yeah, they have casted names, but they're in the real world, they're just people. They're not actual actors, they're just people. And so they were assigning the individuals to the roles they were playing in the show. So, and I can't remember the names off the top of my head right now, but they're just individuals who lived in Westview. And I think that's the cool scene with them and the cops. Like, why don't you go ahead and so where's Westview? Westview doesn't exist. And they're like, what? They're right by the sign.
No,
so
I was sitting there going like, I'm listening.
Yeah, that's me too, and I think that's neat. It was cool to see him go through the show and identify the individuals there, their characters to who they are in the real actual world outside of Wanda's bubble, who they would be. I liked that, and so I think hopefully with that we get a little more. I think there's some more stuff hidden in there, like when they're talking about in the episode 2, I think it is, where they mentioned the guy is a communist spy. Crystal's told me some neat thoughts about what he is or isn't. The little commercials we see, independent of the show itself, are fascinating. And Crystal sent me a really cool one about Hydra soap, what that commercial could mean. And there's actually a really cool callback possibly to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Agent Coulson. That is really, really neat. Someone did like a cool snippet of these things with that explains what that might be. I think it's very layered.
It's hard for me to see these Easter eggs because I like I said, I wasn't caring yet.
Oh yeah, Crystal has to show me all this, by the way. This is not me being good. Crystal sees all this and is way more in depth on this than I am by far. But it's nice that like, it's great she saw the value of the show right away, where I was struggling really hard to find the value of it. I was really struggling to find like what to enjoy on it. But I mean, she's a big enough fan already of Wanda-vision anyway that there was so much content for her there already out of the gate that she was in love. She enjoyed it immediately. And now that I'm at the stage where I'm like, oh, hey, I really actually, this is nice. Like, this is cool. Something's happening and I want to see more. She's showing me all the cool extra bits and she's telling me all the cool extra little things that are tucked away in there. And I think that's what's really neat about the show is that true fans of it can really get their mileage out of it per episode right now. And we're only 3 or 4 in. And I think that's amazing.
Are they planning on, Brent, do you think they're going to be planning on actually maybe incorporating some of the X-Men soon, since she is technically the daughter of Magneto himself?
That's what they're talking. They're wondering if this, at the end of all this, maybe it's a way to introduce the idea of the New Mutants, or maybe not the New Mutants, but mutants into the universe again, since they have the rights and everything back.
Yeah, I mean, might as well. I mean,
they
have it back. They have the rights to everything in the world. It's called monopoly, and it's not good. Dude,
they have the rights to all their characters again, and more than that. But I still think it's a. I hope so. I would like. We watched. I don't know if you watched the New Mutants movie.
I did not watch it. I I guess it's on the list, but I'm not too interested in it. I didn't hear enough hype about it, so
It's okay.
it's okay. Yeah.
I hate how much I love the X-Men, and I hate how I constantly, every film that is released, I have to say it's okay. Like, that's beyond Logan. I haven't seen, an X-Men film where I'm like, that is a good goddamn movie. That was amazing. I mean, we've talked again. You and I have had conversations about X-Men First Class and Days of Future
Days
Past.
of Future Past is my baby.
But I mean, collectively, I hold superhero movies in a different realm of their own as far as films go. And what I expect is, like, at this point, I expect like the Captain America, Winter Soldier type film. Of anything they're going to grab, I expect that as a minimum caliber. I love Winter Soldier as a film. I think it's fun. I think it's explosive. I think we get to learn a lot Steve. We get to watch his kind of relationship develop a bit. And we get to poke at a lot of fun things, but in the safety of like a run-around action flick, right? That's awesome.
Yeah, huge step up from First Avenger, too.
Oh,
huge step
humongous.
up.
And then
Yeah.
X-Men, though, constantly lays on that level of, like, there was some great acting from the individuals in the new X-Men films. There has been fantastic acting. I don't think you can necessarily
Ian McKellen and
deny
Patrick
that.
Stewart and Hugh Jackman, I mean, those three just alone
Great.
have destroyed. You say perfect casting. And, I mean, I guess Ian McKellen, I never saw him as that casting just because, I mean, Ian McKellen, he's kind of a chameleon anyways. But Patrick Stewart, I sadly would typecast him only as that character now. And even though Hugh Jackman's not even close to the right part for Wolverine, he nailed it.
Oh,
oddly enough.
The man crushed it. The man, he did his homework and he loved that character and he did such good work with it. But
even though he's like a foot taller than he was supposed to be, and
but you know what? Let him take liberties. It's okay. But I think just the downside is we have so many films from the X-Men universe, but about none that we say are. It's hard for me to recommend any of them to people because you really have to want to see some actors shine and then the rest of the film fall apart, and that sucks. Now,
well, that you're right, and James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, they're the ones.
So
those kind of people are the ones that are holding those movies together because then you have these little other characters who are very weak, and it's just like, okay, dude, stop trying to introduce Cyclops if the character is very weak because. Cyclops is not a weak character, but they've always made him a weak character in the movies for some reason, and they do that with a lot of the characters.
That's the thing, right? It's maddening.
Yeah,
it's and with WandaVision now kind of coming, hopefully to that point of reintroducing the idea of mutants and stuff. I would love to see a Cyclops movie. I know that's dumb. I know it's Scott Summers. I track everybody.
No,
a lot of people.
That's not dumb. He used to be cool. He used to be cool.
I think he was a cool despite my love for Wolverine and I love their head buddy macho shit or whatever, Scott is a character that would sacrifice himself and do anything for the team, and he's a great leader, and he has a lot of stuff that I want to see well done on the big screen. And on top of that, I want to see it's so dumb. I still to this day want to see a good mutant fight. I want the Avengers level mutant fight. I want to be captivated in my chair for 20 minutes while 6 mutants go absolutely ape shit, and I don't want to see where it's like rough looking rubber suity type of stuff. I want to go to that when they all stood together in the Avengers and everything went haywire. It just went nuts. That was some of the best cinema in my entire existence, and not because it shouldn't deserve any Academy Award, but it does deserve to be appreciated for bringing together the first time of that. I think Academy Award directing is very different from just fun, explosive, eye-opening directing, so to speak, right? You're making a spectacular thing.
I get what you're saying, but it's not Transformers. It was an action movie that had a bunch of character in it. That's hard to do, especially for directors to say, hey, a lot of these characters are like these 50, 60, 70 superheroes and supervillains that have been around for 65 years. We have to arrange them perfectly, and I think they did a pretty damn good job. I mean, I would say that does deserve some kind of Oscar in that, because that's hard to do. Because you see X-Men 3, and they tried to put a million characters in there, and it was
falls apart.
Hard to watch.
Constantly falls apart, and that's kind of where I'm hoping. I'm hoping that we need a showrunner for mutants, and hopefully with WandaVision introducing this as a possibility, and we get a good show, someone to guide this. I really hope that. I look back in 3 or 4 years from now and I go, thank God WandaVision came and did what it did, despite how upset I was at the start, because we're at this point with mutants and there are these people like the Feiges.
We're spoiled too.
But to a certain degree, I'm glad, because we deserve to be spoiled considering all the failed attempts that Hollywood has given us with hero movies and how bad they've been, right?
And all the the cool thing about fans is we've been putting a lot of advice in these forums and blogs for years. I mean, we tell them, hey guys, all you got to do is make a drama about a character, or at least make that person go through tribulations and to have some kind of arc for them, and then we'll be fine. I promise.
I
But
totally agree.
they always like, and this is where there's certain times when they try to do that. Like Game of Thrones is a perfect example of a pretty much a damn near perfect show where they were
Oh,
always doing that. And then you're gonna probably people are probably mad at me for this, but I thought The Witcher was a poor man's version of Game of Thrones.
really? That's a
Yeah,
fascinating. I've never. I mean, it's funny. I hear a lot of people compare Witcher and Game of Thrones. When it first came out, people were doing
and
that.
I don't
I
like to
didn't.
compare, but
No, I
yeah,
didn't. Well, I didn't think it was a good comparison. I think that's two very the complexities you get with Game of Thrones are based on several houses, several families, and these different areas and regions, and this power struggle that is like all over the place. In The Witcher, we basically get one nation attacking another nation, and Geralt just happens to be in the middle because of his career and his pursuit and who he is. Is kind of
that's fine, Brent.
yeah.
But the
Oh,
problem
I'm
is
with you. It's
they,
totally
they were
fine.
they were just. I think the reason why Game of Thrones spoiled me is because they understood the idea of pacing everything, pace. It was slow. It was a slow burn, but it was a burn that felt good. Witcher is like they did what Game of Thrones last two seasons did. Is they quickly are putting stuff together, and they're the one scene they're right here, the next scene they're in the complete opposite of the area, and I don't like stuff like that, especially whenever they're trying to be. I don't like I said I've been spoiled with stuff like Lord of the Rings, and that's that slow. Lord of the Rings is also a slow burn too, and it's something that I've now kind of expected a certain kind of quality, and it's not fair to stuff like Witcher or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. Dungeons and Dragons wasn't good, but
Oh God.
it's do you remember that movie?
Dude, we just rewatched that. I was on another show where we sat down and we talked about it as we rewatched it, and Jesus Christ, what a
It's
just kicked me in the
bad.
head. Oh, it's so terrible. It's so goddamn bad.
It's
It is
bad.
one of the worst pieces of cinema I've ever seen. It's so
Yeah.
bad. It's so freaking bad. Sorry, continue.
No, but my I don't have a gripe with Witcher. I found that well, Cavill was great. He was great. I thought the acting by pretty much him and Yennefer, they were both fine. Everyone else,
Mhm.
I found the acting to be a little bit honestly obnoxious. But I don't know. It was a chore to watch the whole thing. The only reason I watched
Really?
it,
Wow.
yeah, it was a chore. It was a chore. The only thing that was good about it, it was good to look at Cavill. That's it. He was good. He had a perfect voice, a perfect look. I've always liked looking at him. A good Superman, good everything. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of
That's
it. I wasn't
surprising.
a fan of the character development. I thought that pretty much all the characters, including Yennefer, were not very good.
Wow. See that I
I
like
know.
Yennefer's arc. I think I understand. I think a complaint a little bit about it being a fat, not the slow burn that you're after. But at the same time, I think the Witcher universe is very different because I think if you slow burn the Witcher, what you end up doing is the USA thing. Because you can easily just be like, he goes and kills this monster, he goes and kills that monster, he goes to this and that and this and the other. And I think it's easy to get lost in that. I think, though, what's fascinating about The Witcher, and I think what's good and what they're kind of beginning to build on, is his relationship he's going to have with Yennefer, Triss, and
I like that.
Ciri.
I like that. I thought that was the last a couple episodes, especially the last episode was decent. But there was like the queen that died the
Hmm.
last second to last episode. Every time she was on screen, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe anything she was doing. She was like doing that. She had this very intense look to her, and I just
Yeah,
saw Nicolas
I
Cage
kind
the
of
whole
get that.
time.
I can get
And
that with her. I get that a little
and
bit.
but and then and then there's a couple other characters. His little guy, the little silly jester guy that was following him around singing songs
Oh,
about
Dandelion.
his
Yeah.
um. I didn't really I get what they're trying to accomplish with it, but I didn't never I don't remember the guy's name. I just
Yeah, and
I
I
don't
can get
know.
that. I think the supporting cast of Witcher isn't Dandelion, and I can't remember the dwarf's name, and we'll meet him at some point, I'm sure. The supporting cast is, and this is coming from me, a big Witcher fan, has never felt overly strong.
Mm,
I played The Witcher because I like Geralt. I like hunting down monsters and being Geralt, and then
mhm.
I like the. At first, it feels like Geralt has a sense of moral ambiguity, but I think the line he says, "If I have to choose between two evils, or the lesser of two evils, I choose not to choose. I won't choose because they're both evil." I think that mentality for that character is stunning to watch, and I think the best thing about the Witcher universe that we've yet to really get to chew on is that's how that world is. It's very old England, and it's very cruel. It's very dark, and it's very like self-serving, and The Witcher, despite all appearances and his talk consistently of like, hey, I do a job, I get paid for it, and I move on. I'm here for coin, I'm here to do whatever. Yet he consistently chooses to get involved in affairs and do the right thing. And it is unfortunate we have maybe really brushed by that right now with the way the show was. But that being said, I think The Witcher I think it's good TV. I think it's
I definitely don't think it's bad. I definitely don't think it's bad.
Oh yeah,
I'm
I
not
didn't think
watching
you were
it
saying
going,
it's bad.
This is garbage. I think if I had to say a 1 to 10, it'd probably be a 7.5,
I think
which is
that's
not
fair.
bad.
I give it about an 8 or a 9, but the reason I give it that is also I'm pulling from the background of video game cinema. Like, if we just reach within the muck
Is that
and
fair though? Is that fair to do?
oh yeah, because let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's because the history we have of video game cinema is not only terrible, much like superhero movie cinema has been terrible for years and
that's a good
years.
point.
But the fact that they did it in a show format when you really could have done like a film, so to speak, and you could have easily leaned on some of the stronger Witcher stuff. You could have just ingrained us in the world and gone with The Wild Hunt. The Wild Hunt is a fascinating, fun story. Even if you just play through the game, you find yourself
I played through just the
invested.
game. I didn't do the side missions and stuff.
No, but if you just play through the game, it's still fun to watch Geralt develop and watch him chase after his, adopted daughter to a certain degree and how much he's willing to risk and the nations he's willing to ignore. And there's a lot of layers to that. And they could have done that. They could have easily gone with the best thing and just been pretty much probably on a really, really solid streak roll, be it a movie or a show, and they could have kept producing it. However, they introduced us to the world of The Witcher so we would have, I hope now, a further understanding of what we're going to see later on, where we don't have to go back and be like, wait, where is that? Who's this? Why is he? Okay, no, hang on. Right, rewind. I get it. First season he did this thing, and it kind of relates to why he's doing this. I get that. But just in an overall sense here, to kind of come back to the main point that we wandered away from, we've definitely been spoiled, and I think one of the things with the Wanda series on a closing note for me is that because of that being spoiled so much, when I saw the gimmicky 19, I Dream a Genie and Bewitched and all that other stuff kind of vibe right out the gate, it definitely set me back where I went, what the hell? This is way too out there for me. What the hell is happening? Is this really what I'm going to watch? And that's part of that being spoiled. I knew myself, it's going to be different. To me, it was like, okay, they're going to do a little bouncy weird thing. No. It was different. But now that we've had time, and I'm back to my spoiled setting of episode 4, where it's a full-on cinema, like I'm watching a movie for 35 minutes, and it's staged well, the actors are great, and like they're bringing back all the universe for the Marvel stuff. I'm like, dude, I'm sold. I'm there 150%. So I blame Marvel for spoiling me and me maybe being a little too heavy-handed with it at the start.
Damn you, Marvel.
For me, I know, sons of
damn you,
guns.
Marvel, for spoiling us, and damn you, DC, for not spoiling us.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, dude, we need to do an episode on DC. Damn it, because I just sat down. I should rewatched a whole bunch of those films, and I have so much to say, and I have so much anger that I need to. I'm so full of rage that I need to just express myself about it. So I hope that's in your hat somewhere. If it's not, put it in there. Not the hat. Excuse me. Put it in the cup. I want it in the cup.
I'll put it in there.
Okay.
I'll put it in there. That's good, my friend. So we get to talk about Brent's favorite fantasy novel and movie, right, Brent? I think both. It's Harry Potter, everyone. So Brent, I'm gonna let you love it. Talk about it, bud. Go ahead.
Okay, Harry Potter's about a boy and a stick, and I think if he says words, the stick turns into a stag, and at the end, his house falls down and kills a bunch of people, but he's okay with it.
Spoiler alert, everyone! Spoiler alert. Asshole.
I think that's Harry Potter in a nutshell. He has a dude he's in love with, his best friend Ron, I think. Oh God,
that's
Crystal.
his lover Ron.
Dude, you couldn't hear it. I said that, and Crystal's sitting on the spare bed, just relaxing and listening, and she went, like she's not okay. I will tell you what I know of Harry Potter. The knowledge in my brain. I know Harry Potter is somehow a chosen child from having a lightning bolt-esque scar on his face that he received when he was a kid, and some evil dark lord that apparently we all decide not to talk about because that's the safe and adult thing to do, to just ignore it, is coming back from whence ever he left and was banished to. And Harry Potter is the chosen one that can defeat him, and no one decides to really raise Harry Potter to help defeat him because no one wants to talk about it, and it goes about through 10 books of them deciding it's not a thing, and then finally they decide it's a thing. They're like, oh God, get him, Harry, and then that's what I know about Harry Potter. It is not my
You sound ignorant.
You're ignorant. Don't be ignorant. Nick, tell me. Okay, so do this. Let's start here. You love Harry Potter. You enjoy
Yes,
it.
I've read the books. I've read some of them twice and all of them once. at
So
least, yes.
what is it? What am I missing? What am I missing in the Harry Potter realm that I'm just not getting? Because again, I'm definitely in a minority. I track that 100%. I am in the minority. I know
Mhm.
this is a large, huge fantasy world that people
Mm.
adore. I know that. I can't bring myself to enjoy it. And on top of it, it's not because it's urban fantasy. I like urban fantasy. I think urban fantasy is neat and kind of cool and creative. And this does not land for me. What am I missing?
I think that J.K. Rowling has done the best job of creating not just characters, but a whole world around the world. And it's allowed people to use their imaginations. Whenever you think of, like you go into a train station, you're thinking, you know what, there might be somewhere here I can just run right through it. And then that's the magic world. She did that, but she made it all so real. And she did it the whole time with the books with a great story about good versus evil. And everyone relates to that kind of thing. And like I said, I've read many books, many different trilogies and such. My favorite books before those were the Vampire Chronicles. Huge fan, and I I read Harry Potter, and I remember reading the first one, and immediately I was hooked. I remember thinking, first of all, this is a guy, he gets treated like crap from his aunt and uncle. You have no idea why. You just know he gets treated like crap. And then all of a sudden, there's these animals watching him, and he's like, why, they're just studying him, and like, what's going on? Why are they studying him? And next thing you know, you're entrapped in this beautiful, surreal world where anything's possible. And the way she words it, you feel like you're there. That's all I want to say about that.
I will tell you this. I read one Harry Potter book, and I didn't find it overly good. And I'm gonna kill you. Here's
I'm melting.
I stand a little bit on the opposite side of the spectrum, and there's nothing wrong with this. And just as where
Says you.
I'm coming for you, boy. We don't like your kind around here.
String him up.
I find it to be a thing that I always hated in fantasy. I've always hated in fantasy. And I didn't really know how to express it in words until probably within the last 8 years. I don't like fantasy where the kids are saddled with all the responsibility of resolving the adult situation. It immediately pulls me so far out of the story.
So South Park. You don't like South Park? Gotcha.
Kinda, yeah. South Park at least is satirical, though. This isn't satirical. This is the dark Voldemort. Whoa! We don't say that around here. It's never going to be a thing, despite any evidence to the contrary. And we know there's a cult that they're totally into him, but there's not. Just whoa, stop. I don't like that. I hate it. I don't like it.
First of all, Brent.
Go ahead.
Why? First of all, you see all these amazing British actors, Ralph Fiennes and all these people that are Oscar winners, and you see them be these characters that they own completely and utterly without any that felt weird. How does that not appeal to you, my friend?
My statement is, don't yell at me. I don't think those are very deep characters. I think reading the perfect example is if you have deep characters. Okay, let's for the sake of argument, a deep character is someone who, when they die, you should know a whole shitload about them. And this is going to be in comparative to the movie to the book, so I'm going to do a little split here. Okay. You should know a ton about them. You should be invested in watching their story come to resolution. At the end of their story, if it's a well-written story and character, you should feel that is complete. Despite whether you agree with the ending or not, you should feel that story is complete and sold and told. Now, at the end of the books, Rowling did this thing that I still can't comprehend, where she was axing characters. And you can go ahead and hold it over this veneer of showing the price
agree
of
with you.
war.
I know what you're thinking now.
Yeah.
Mad-Eye Moody and all these characters. Yeah,
Perfect example. And again, you can hold it over the veneer of okay, but it shows the cost of war. Anybody can die at any time. It's okay, so hold on. You have 9 books or 8 books, however many books it is, to develop this idea that people can die at any moment, and instead what you do is at the very end you start cutting them off. And in my opinion, it feels like you're doing that because you don't know where to take the story or don't want to take the time to invest. That is bad writing. And that's not saying Harry Potter is bad writing. It's just one of the sides where my perfect kind of example to this is there is a series you should all read because it's great. It's called Malazan Book of the Fallen. You should read
talk
it.
about this. You
But this
should
is
marry
great.
Malazan.
I
book,
should
yeah.
because it's great character development. You start in several books. There is a full cycle of character. You meet them, you learn about them, you find their lives, watch them, and then they die. Not because of some estranged reason. They die because of, like, a perfect example of, like, the cost of war. It's just they're in battle, they're doing stuff, and they die. But their story at that moment is told completely. We have resolution and we move on. And that is super important to designing characters. Now, did we see that with Harry? Sure. Did we get that with Ron? Sure. Ron's brothers, Mad Eye Moody, the werewolf dude, I don't even remember his name, the skinny, what's his name? Skinny Lupin? Is that it?
Professor Lupin.
Yeah, Professor Lupin.
There's a lot of these dudes that are just kind of, they get cut off. We learn that they're going to have families and do all this stuff, and all of a sudden it's like, gone. Okay, that's it. I hope you're sad
I agree
now.
with that. I agree.
yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right, Brent. I felt that way when I read the books and watched the movie. And I remember thinking, like, because Harry Potter was just flying away and Mad Eye Moody was behind him. And next thing you know, Mad Eye Moody was shot down. And then he's like, where's Mad Eye Moody? He's gone. And then that was literally it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, and that might be fine in certain times, but usually, like you said, good writing will usually, like, it'll make some kind of impactful thing where it's like, it hurts your stomach, but it just happened. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not supposed to think about it anymore because it's already over. Because he's not even talking about it. She's not like, oh, Harry can't fly right now because his head's all over the place because one of his professors just passed away. No, it's just like, and that's it. Okay, and then but
and again, that's just my that's just the side I'm kind of just drawing to. That being said, collectively, I think through the books, and I want to hear you speak to this a little more, it's very clear that there is they make me think of Redwall books a little bit. I don't know if you ever read the Redwall series at all, but Redwall is, each book kind of follows a similar cycle of, like, there is an overall issue going on. People within this little abbey called Redwall are solving riddles and mysteries and all this other stuff within the abbey to aid whatever's happening in the main story so they can all be safe, right? Like, that's kind of the thing. And I think there is definitely a writing hook and a writing a vibe to Harry Potter that she nailed. Because I think there is progress with Harry and his friends, particularly just looking at...
Well, never with Harry. Harry's progress is not really progress. You find out pretty much by the end of all of them that what makes Harry Potter badass is his friends and family. That's what, they were all badass.
And that's kind of my point, though, is that at least the momentum there shows that, like, it's his friends that help him along the way. And his relationships change as they do move forward with... I don't remember the girl's name. I'm sorry. I only remember Ron's name. He's the only
Hermione.
one. Hermione. With Hermione, that relationship develops different than people are expecting. His relationship develops with a lot of characters differently, even though we have some cyclical stuff like the dude Malfoy. Is that his name? The blonde-haired kid?
Yeah.
Malfoy is basically just the dickhead, like, all throughout until the very, very end where his, spoiler alerts or whatever.
He's still pretty much a dickhead.
He's still a dickhead.
Yeah, at the very end, he's standing there with his family, and I'm thinking, you don't deserve to be standing there, man. You're a piece of shit. Exactly.
And so it's like that's all. I think one thing I want to hear from you is what was it when you were reading through Harry Potter, like the first time beyond, what's the first time that, like, hooked you on Harry Potter? Like, I know my moments for fantasy for me were, like, where I went, this is my genre. This is what I want to read, nothing but this. What was the moment where Harry Potter kind of really hooked you and you went, I want to finish this. Whatever happens, I am set, and this is where I'm dying on this hill, one way or the other. I love this. Do you have a particular moment you remember?
No, it was pretty much almost immediately. They paint the picture of this orphan boy pretty much being abused by his aunt and uncle and his cousin. And like any movie, like, Mary Poppins, any kind of movie where someone needs to be saved, and then you see someone like Hagrid came in and saved him. And I remember thinking, and the way when he came in and says, oh, there's a school and, you're a wizard and you're going to, if you come with us, you won't have to deal with this bullshit anymore. And I remember thinking, my stomach, because I had a constant stomach ache for chapters and chapters that he was with this stupid family.
Mhm.
And then the moment he says, "I'm taking you away from this," I remember I started tearing up. I'm thinking, "Oh, finally!" And as we all know from many books, the books can maybe convey the best emotions from someone,
Oh yeah.
but for me, usually the books I would read would be like sci-fi or horror, and I usually never got that kind of emotion that would make me tear up. I mean, unless it was something like A Child Called It or something like that, like one of those
Mhm.
like true stories that I found out later wasn't even a true story. But I guess it put that emotion out on me immediately, and I'm thinking, okay, well, any book that is going to make me feel like actually like feel like this, like vulnerable, I'm all yeah, I'm going to keep on trying it. And then, like I said, the best thing about her situation is she paints this world, this school. My wife is constantly to this day talking about how she would love to go to that Hogwarts school. She's like,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, the sorting hat, I would pick one out, and I would definitely be Slytherin. And if they gave me anything else, I'd be like, no, I'm Slytherin." And I'm thinking, gosh, you're a 34-year-old woman, and you're talking like a little 8-year-old girl. That's what Harry Potter does to people.
Yeah,
And
I like that. It's a good way to put it. It was really strange. My dad has never. I don't think my dad's ever read the books, but we share a very similar taste in film and fantasy and stuff. And when he was like, "Oh, I love those Harry Potter movies. They're great. I love those." I remember just taking a step back. I'm like, "What in the hell is going on here?" Because I was still just so far afield from it.
sure,
But I do see the appeal to it. I can understand it. I understand the depth and like the wildness kind of the world and how just it's so special and yet so enclosed of itself that I don't know. I can see why people that there's so many weird things. The paintings that talk and move, and the very oh my god, help me, patriarchal Gandalf. What's his name? Help me,
Gandalf.
G. What's his name?
What?
What is the headmaster's name? He dies. What's his damn name?
Oh,
Starts with a G.
Dumbledore.
Dumbledore. It does not start with a G. Sorry,
Say,
I'm thinking
Gandalf.
Gandalf
We're
the
not
whole
talking
time
about
because
Lord
I
of the
love
Rings right
him.
now, bud.
But
I
you know,
love Lord of
I
the Rings
can
too. We can do it for another time, but we're talking about Harry Potter.
I can see the appeal of Dumbledore, and I can see the emotional like. It's easy to connect to that character. Even just seeing him in the films, in the one Harry Potter book I read, I can understand the connection to that character. I can understand why you would be invested with this very kind and caring and intelligent old man who's trying to guide you down the best path so you can be ready for whatever life throws at you. We all want that. We all want, and I think she did a great job with
Yeah.
that character, particularly of really tapping into that with that
Richard
little
Harris, the
university.
actor,
Harris,
was
there we
perfect
go.
for it.
Thank you. So I can see all those things. I admit I just can't. I just don't fall in the bandwagon for it. I spend
It's fine. Just don't ever compare it to Twilight. That's all I ask.
no, I think I don't think that's fair. I think anybody doing that is actually just looking for a rise out of anybody.
Yeah, and I
constantly.
don't think it's fair either. In all
I
honesty,
really
even
don't
though I'm
like
not
it.
a fan of Twilight, I think we talked about this before. First of all, more power to Stephanie Meyer for being able to just be a stay-at-home mom. I think she was a Jack Mormon, and just stay-at-home mom who's like, I'm going to write some fan fiction, and and then all of a sudden it's the bestseller in the world. I'm all for that. I'm all for that lifestyle. I'm all for that dream that we all, But I read the first two books. I think there's
Crystal knows.
4 or 5.
I don't know how many Twilight books. How many
Man, I'm
Twilight
telling
books
you,
are
and
there?
I've read all the Harry Potter books. I've
4?
read, I've read Anne Rice. I love women authors because first of all, they write differently than men, and I don't want to get destroyed for this, but it seems like they write a little bit more like with emotion, and so whenever I'm feeling something, it's almost like they're putting different feelings in there, and it's always like Anne Rice and J.K. Rowling and Stephanie Meyer. I just named 3, and they're top books of all time, and I think it's because not Twilight, but the kind of poetry and like the beautiful language that women are able to put in there that maybe Stephen King can't. But
I am a little torn on that direct. One reason I think they're very high sellers is because they hit a very intense demographic generally across the board. I mean, again, when Harry Potter came out, was that 9th grade, 8th grade for most, something like that,
yeah.
around my realm. And I mean, that's nothing to do with the quality of the book per se, but it's a very large demographic to hit. And when you get something that's very popular and it spreads like wildfire, it's pretty, I mean, again, Fortnite is like a really dumb example, but it's a perfect counterexample of like, no one knew about that game at all ever. And then all of a sudden, like every 8th grader knew about it. It was like out of nowhere. Every eighth grader played it, and
Yeah,
Harry
my
Potter.
kids still do the dances all the time. I was walking and all of a sudden they start doing this weird thing. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? They're like, Fortnite. I'm like, okay.
Okay, well, do you, I guess. But that's kind of how I felt about Harry Potter. I remember not hearing a word about it at all. Then all of a sudden, like, I remember walking into the library, and that's all big shelves of the books you could check out, and they were stacks of the Harry Potter books just everywhere, and it just, like, wildfire spread. So I think there is some semblance of, like, I don't know if I necessarily blame the writing as much as the demographic. I would say their writing is fine. I wouldn't call it... And again, I have a limited view of this. I read one book, so I am very limited.
Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah. One thing, I'm sure you can agree with me with this, Brent. Have you seen, and I think a lot of you guys have not seen these movies. Daniel Radcliffe does these really amazing indie gems that no one ever watches, like
Akimbo Hands or
Horns,
whatever it is.
Horns and Swiss Army Man.
Yep.
I mean, he does some really wacky movies, and I think that sadly Harry Potter kind of screwed him for a while because people only want him to be those kind of roles. But he's like, no. So if you watch any of his other movies, guys, he has some really interesting movies. Horns. He starts becoming like a demon.
Yeah.
And it shows like, yeah, you know, you seen Brent?
I watched part of it. I didn't get all the way through it because it is indie. It's indie and it's kind of intense. It's kind of intense.
It is, yeah. It's intense. It's kind of dark and it's not really a happy movie, but
No.
It's just like, it's nice to see. First of all, Daniel Radcliffe, you know, did the Broadway thing for a while.
Yeah, there was a
And
whole
then
thing
he
about
started-
him doing a nude scene. People were not happy about it. They were mad that he was nude up there, but he didn't give a shit. And that speaks to the strength of him just as an actor. I really appreciate the fact that I think it really... Harry Potter obviously catapulted his career, right? You're set for 8 films, or how many films there were, and he made buku bucks. But instead of just saying, okay, well, I'm good or whatever, he clearly enjoyed acting so much that he went and he did the stuff. He has enough money, he can do the films he wants to do now. And I think that's kind of what you see him do. And I think you can see him. He has chops. The dude's got some chops, dude. He can really
and
act.
he would know because like there were, even though he was great as Harry Potter, and I'm not gonna say Harry Potter's a one-dimensional character because he's not, but it's kind of like there wasn't much of a stretch for his. I guess when you see that, you're like, okay,
I'm with
yeah,
you.
he's
I
playing
would
Harry
say
Potter.
one-dimensional is pretty
But then
close.
you watch something else, yeah. But when you watch something else, he's playing a druggie or something like that. You're like, well, dude, good job, man. You're not playing that. Like, as much as I love people like Will Ferrell, dude, do something else.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Like even Jim Carrey, he does a lot of fun stuff. He's very talented. He does many different, different spectrums. He can be a good guy, a bad guy. Will Ferrell, stuff like that. You're great, but yeah. And then you have Daniel Radcliffe, and people know him. Oh yeah, Harry Potter guy. I'm like, oh, he's done so many other things.
He's done a lot of different stuff, and I think it's safe to say that Harry Potter, as far as the films go, and again, one-dimensional is pretty rough. That's very rude. However, it's hard to say he's more than 2, and that's nothing wrong with that. But I think it leans a little bit on the depth of the writing. I think if you hold Game of Thrones up beside its show counterpart, you can see those characters have depth, not because the actors necessarily apply a lot of extra depth, but because the characters have depth across the board. You watch Jon Snow develop into a troubled leader. You see that consistently as he tries to change and push it away until inevitably every time he finally has to just bite. And when it finally comes down to that final season where he's got to be the leader, he has to be that person, he steps into the role despite how damn punishing it is for him. You can
and then
see,
Grey Worm
dude,
tells him off, which is an odd thing, though.
Yeah, that's...
Out of all people, Grey Worm goes, "You will leave this continent." I'm like, oh, who are you, dude?
Can you chill? Yeah.
You don't even have a penis.
Take that. It's like, that's not how it works, but I feel you.
I'm just kidding. He was a good character.
But that's the thing, right? You can reach into that entire book series and you get that. You get characters that are developed and they consistently change and morph into something that sometimes turns out to be less than desirable. Daenerys is a really clean example of like a disappointing
I get what you're
character
saying.
development.
I get what you're
saying. I think, again...
Yeah, you're kind of what you see is what you get with these characters for the most part is what... And there are certain characters like... And a lot of people, my wife's favorite character is easily Severus Snape. And it's because Alan Rickman is the man. And rest in peace, by the way, Alan Rickman. But I get what you're saying. A lot of these characters kind of like, no, he's the bad guy, he's the good guy. I get that. But when did that ever stop a movie from being just a great movie? Like
agreed.
Star Wars, for example.
Yep.
It's
You're not wrong. I, by no means is that me saying, again, it's only drawing from, like, again, if I feel it's important that we have a scale of some nature, and this is how my scale works. If I'm scaling something by, is it good? Is it fantastic? Is it whatever? If we're going to stand on a hill and say that, then I just reach out to what is something we all globally agree is not only fantastic, fun to watch, but is good, right? That we all kind of universally say, yes, this is very, very good. And I think Lord of the Rings is one of those good examples of like fantasy media that it won awards. The cinematography is great. The directing was just perfect.
Hobbit, I wouldn't do that with though.
No, but no one did either, right? You look at Hobbit, and no one did that. And that's kind of my point. If we're going to have to say, where does Harry Potter for us lie on a scale of, is it this groundbreaking revolutionary thing that's good because of its writing caliber and so on and so forth and what we're measuring against, we have to have something to measure it against. And then I feel like when people sit down and do that with Harry Potter, and I really want to make this clear. This isn't a dig at Harry Potter. It is not devaluing Harry Potter. It is just simply saying, if the scale is these two things, Harry Potter does not equate to the like Lord of the Rings on the side, but it's very good. It's still fun to watch and we enjoy it. Like you just said, there's nothing wrong with good guy, bad guy, and that's as easy, as simple as it gets. That's perfect. We love that. Die Hard is great because that's what it is. It's just a good guy and a bad guy, and that's it. Back
Alan Rickman.
I know, because when you said it, I wanted to say rest in peace, Hans Gruber. That's what I wanted to say, but I didn't. But yeah, we got full circle. So I just think that's important to note that my level of what I feel towards Harry Potter is it's a very skewed scale. I think that's important for me to annotate to you guys, is I'm aggressively in another field, but not because Harry Potter is bad. It's just because I'm reaching for things that I feel are of a different caliber, and that's not fair to Harry Potter to do that against. Now, that being said, if I did like Dresden Files to Harry Potter is hands down better than Dresden Files because Dresden Files is a consistent urban fantasy of just filler episodes. That's all we get. Dresden barely moves or navigates that circumference of that world, despite how full of cool, awesome urban fantasy stuff it is. It doesn't really go anywhere. At least Harry Potter starts at one place as a child and ends somewhere where he's an adult and he makes an adult decision finally. And he does what adults needed to do. And it's kind of like this cool full circle type thing. So I think that's kind of important to note. I really just want to make sure, because I know when my wife is listening right now, like, you're being a real piece of shit. Harry Potter's great.
You don't think you would compare Harry Potter
There are things too that I have to bring up just because
to another children's
John Williams did the composing, and John Williams,
I could compare to that. Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
is maybe the best composer of all time. And anytime he does anything, it's recognizable as John Williams. And I have to say Harry Potter, that's another trademark John Williams.
Oh yeah. I think that's right. And I think Chris, I just brought up a really good point too. That I should be, when I made that previous comparison, I should be doing it to other children's books as well. And I will say, comparatively to Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I didn't like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. I read all of them as a child, and I remember them.
I liked reading them. I didn't like watching the movies.
I don't like either, it turns out. I read when I went into my fantasy kick after Lord of the Rings, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was like literally the next thing on the list because it's the next thing that was recommended. And so I chewed through all that stuff, but I still get a bad taste in my mouth as I remember reading it. Because, I'm like dwarves and elves and magic and Sauron and Saruman and Gandalf, and I'm like over here losing my mind, and they're like, Aslan, people are frozen in stone. Ooh.
Snow Queen, who offers enchantments and stuff. Yeah.
So and again, if you were to hold, in my opinion, that against Harry Potter, I think it's very, very safe to say Harry Potter is the better book, just because I think there's more going on. It feels like in Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, we constantly come back to the same point, and those characters don't shift very much. They just are children, and all of a sudden they're back to being adults ruling a kingdom, then they're back to children. But it doesn't feel like there's anything of like genuine, real consequence throughout the whole thing, and it feels like every time something can just be solved by Aslan or someone else of great magical prowess and being. And again, this is drawing on like the deepest recesses of my terrible memory. But that being said, it's to the point where I can remember the scene with the dwarves meeting Frodo. I remember they sang a song. I remember the golem scene and the riddles. I remember when we get to meet the Fellowship in the book for the first time. I remember the bet with Gimli and Legolas. I remember that Gimli wins, and I remember these are all the moments in the book I recall. I don't even need the film, but they're all in there. They're all tucked away. Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe didn't even bother to imprint beyond a giant lion. Like the idea and the visual representation of like God is a giant lion or Jesus or however you want to,
it was Jesus, yeah. Together. Well, I guess it's the same person, but yeah.
It's very clearly that. But the point is, of all this stuff in that fantasy book, in that world, it doesn't ring nearly as as well, and it doesn't hold over nearly as well as Harry Potter does. In 20 years from now, I'm still going to have people talking about how they're rereading the first Harry Potter books. I'm sure your kids are going to read the Harry Potter books because of your encouragement, and they're going to
they'll
love
be
them.
forced.
You know, it's one of those things where, again, to hold it to the caliber of where it is, it's a fine book. It really is. To hold it to the caliber that I force upon it, it's unfair. I think that's a better statement. I shouldn't even judge it against it.
And Brent, at the end of the day, I mean, you said so many nice things about Harry Potter. If you don't like Harry Potter, you like Harry Potter. It's just one of those things. You're wrong. That's all.
Oh yeah, and that's fine. You know.
no, I mean, it makes sense. And what you're saying, in all honesty, adds a little bit more of like oh, I get it. It is not maybe as complex as Lord of the Rings is and all that kind of thing. And I would never. Well, no, I would compare them because, like I said, it is the best books I've ever read. The movies were good. The problem with the movies, the only problem is they weren't 12 hours long each.
Oh,
And I'm not being silly. I'm not being far fetched. They should have been 12 hours. So that's why they should do a TV show where each season is one of the books.
I would. I do like the universe a little bit, and I should annotate this a little. I kind of liked Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, because that's more of my speed on urban fantasy. I like the magical world crossing with the real world more often than not. I like that type of stuff.
You want to see more of the human effect as well as the wizard effect?
Yeah, because I do feel like in the overall, you kind of get a little taste of the human, and then they just kind of collectively kick it to the side and say, okay, it was all wizard stuff now. You know, it doesn't feel...
because no one wants to see human stuff because that's what they see every day.
Well,
but I get you're saying though, it's combined. It's making a more of a...
It's more impactful.
Like a more complete like world. It's like, because when you only seen half the world, that's fine and all. It's like nice to escape, but it's nice to mix the politics with the real world too. Because it's like, ooh, the witch stuff is now bleeding into the real world, and that's making shit go real. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and so I think that's... I really do think she has a fantastic universe. It's just not the universe. It just, in closing for me, it's not the universe I can set my hat, and that's just because my preference still lies in Tolkien and Malazan and the large scale.
I need to read Malazan, Brent, because you talk about it a lot.
I will send you the book. Here's the thing. I literally just, on that subject, my buddy Coda just got into Lord of the Rings. Okay, first off, in our Discord, we had to roast several people because they hadn't even seen Lord of the Rings. They caught these hands, Nicholas. They caught hands because fury was unleashed upon them in an immediate need that it be fulfilled, that they at least see Lord of the Rings. Bare minimum. We're not even talking about the other stuff they missed. Just know that wasn't on their list of stuff they'd seen. So anyway, he actually turns out, just since he watched those and loved it, so he's reading the books. And he's like, dude, do you have any other recommendations? I know you like fantasy and stuff. And I was like, all right, listen.
Of course you do, yeah.
And I told him, I'm like, I want to recommend this series to you, but it doesn't hold your hand, and it is not kind. The Malazan series, for those who are curious now after hearing this, are like, I should look up the Malazan. It's called Malazan, Book of the Fallen. It's a 10-book series, and each book is a minimum of 1,000 pages. Minimum. It's a lot to read. It is not a kind world. It is a savage, hateful, mean place. It is brutal. If you do not... I was on the boat when I was reading these, because they were recommended by another sailor. I got to the 7th or 8th book, and I got to a particular part where I threw the book across the room because I had such a surprising and visceral reaction to a moment, and I couldn't read it for like an hour. I was so mad. I was so upset, and I had never, despite my love of everything I've read, nothing has made me want to just like email an author and be like, you son of a bitch, and just lose my mind. I was so upset. These books are that good. And I hold myself to a very high caliber of like what I like to read. For background, for those who don't know, I didn't read a lot of like kids' books. When I first landed in fantasy, Lord of the Rings was the first fantasy thing I read. And everything beyond that, if it like even touched the realm of like 7-year-old Susie's got to stop. Oh yeah, I read Hobbit.
Hobbit's a kid's book.
Yeah, Hobbit's a bit more kidsy, and it was harder for me to get through. But basically, I have always searched for like really fun, awesome fantasy stuff. And that's not to say I don't dip my toe, because I do. I put my foot aggressively in like any of the Forgotten Realms books I've basically read. So any of like the normal fantasy, sword, sorcery, and stuff, I've definitely read that. But
I've read Drizzt a lot, the Dark Elf series. And I read probably about 15 of them, and then I realized that nothing was happening.
Exactly. You, like me, will read like, and, I call it like it's mean to say this, maybe trash can fantasy or basic fantasy. You're going to sit down, you're going to go through like an action movie romp, and you're going to call it good, and that's fine. But they're not books I tend to recommend to people because I don't think they have like a lot of weight or development or value. Now,
No, it starts off, and I'd say the first three Dark Elf books that they wrote were excellent. Like when he's
mhm.
actually in his home world. I think the book's even called Home World. And then I think after those three books, it kind of feels like they start
It's
just inflating everything. Just like, okay, now it's gonna keep on just throwing everything at you.
yeah, it inflates and it kind of gets rinse and repeaty. And again, it's fine because it works for a cheesy fantasy. But the point I'm just trying to get across is, if I'm recommending a book, it's because I really do believe in that book. I really feel it's a very
Sure,
good book,
sure.
and I think it's a lot of time. And if you want a high fantasy that pulls no punches, invests in characters, kills characters for real reasons, genuine reasons, and it's like, the best way I can describe it is it's a soldier's tale, but there's so much more to it. There's so much more complexity. It's one of the best you can read, and it's a little unfair in how it has spoiled me so aggressively that when I hear people go, "But I really, really like Harry Potter. It's really good," that's how I hear it in my head, because I'm like, "You haven't read Malazan. You don't know the darkness, child. You don't even know the pain." It's just, and it's not fair to those people. It's not fair to anybody, because it's very clear the longer I have this conversation with you that I have maybe aggressively held up my
voice acting.
stance of Harry Potter at an unfair level. And again, that's not saying, "Oh, snooty reader." It's just saying I've held it at a lot of things it shouldn't have to fulfill. Because if it comes down to it, is it a fun book? Did people enjoy it? And did it make people happy? Then, I mean, that's a win, right? You can't fight that. People loved it. It was good. Brent, shut up. And I think that's fair.
Cool. Yeah, and like I said, obviously, your opinion and people hear you all the time. Obviously, you know what you're talking about, like Malazan. If that's what you want, and Harry Potter was a little maybe too light for you, and it just there are certain things, like there's not certain consequences for their characters, which you like. Oh no, I like consequences. I like weight and everything. Then yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. Uh, when I read them, and I'm not taking anything away. I'm sure if I read them now, it'd be the same kind of feeling. But when I read them, I was a kid, so I don't know. Maybe if I did read them now, it'd be like, well, I mean, it's kind of a little silly, but I just feel like, and then the movies, and typically movies, especially when you start making that many, they start getting stupid and just, but they stayed. And in fact, the movies got better. If I'm being honest, the movies got better. The first two were kind of like, they were kind of very kiddish, even though they were good. I still had no problem with them. But then Prisoner of Azkaban came, refreshing. It was dark. It was kind of different. It was I remember like you had the Jamaican shrunken head guys like, hello, stay on the bus and be careful. And I'm like, what
Mhm.
is happening? This is, and then the movies got darker and darker, and then you start seeing the weight of Voldemort pretty much stressing Harry Potter out the whole time. And you start seeing Harry just start like get he's tired and he wants to be over. And I love the progression. But
Yeah.
I do get what you're saying. I
I
do get
think
what
it's
you're
a good
saying.
point, though. I think you really nailed that. I would say that's fair about the films. I can recall watching, the last book, which was cut into two pieces for film. The weight of that film actually is completely fair. Marketing, the color palette they went with, everything, grade and blue hues, like this very intense, very dark final kind of conclusion. And I really am actually kind of surprised a little bit now that I think back to it, kind of looking at that and how the films do change. Definitely, you can see like the early shot of the kids doing their like what do you want to call it, their audition for it. It's very kid. It's very funny.
Yeah, they're
It's
very
very
cute
bouncy, and they're
and very, yeah,
adorable. And now
yeah,
when we get through the whole series, though, we finally see that end tail, like you said, where there is weight and consequence. This final like full turnaround confrontation, this war that brews and kind of explodes out. And that's a good point. I didn't think about that with the film, but there's definitely a pretty solid transition from Harry Potter is flying around, he's got his wand or whatever the hell he does, haha, everyone's having a good time, to like
yeah,
people are dying and people are being executed and you are the chosen one. Get this shit
yeah.
done or we're all dead. That's a heavy shift.
Yeah, and even the color of you could tell even the color of the picture got a
Hmm.
little bit like desaturated. You
Yeah.
could tell that they were trying to like show like the tone was like, hey, times are dreary, and we don't know what to do, and all of a sudden the last couple books, it like, literally like the school is been abolished. I mean they abandoned it because it's not safe to be there anymore, and it just I don't know. I remember thinking like this is it, here we go,
Yeah.
here comes the battle.
That's a good point. That's really good.
Yeah, but my friend, I appreciate everything. I pulled in something that you don't necessarily enjoy, and you were very kind, and I appreciate that.
Listen, if we're gonna have these conversations, okay, I have to not be an ape and just attack you and tell you how much I despise things. Okay, I got to be a better person. So, but it's it's nice. I know Crystal must be like, Brent, I've told you all these things that he said. Harry Potter's great, and you're being a real piece of shit, shitting on the things I love, and I hate you for it. But it is so fun to sit down and just have these conversations. And like I said, this is the stuff I miss, man. We say these things just all the time, and and that's what I love.
Our hookahs, you're like, hey, I got this new flavor, buddy. And I was lazy, so I'm sitting there going, okay, well, you're gonna get all this hookah ready. You're gonna get you do
the
little tinfoil and everything.
Oh my god!
I'm gonna take advantage of it, and then we're gonna have some good conversation. And
it was great, and that's tonight. This is beyond all the other ones we've had, which were fantastic. This has heavily reminded me of those wonderful times, especially to be a bit on the opposite side of the spectrum and not be at each other's throats. And
usually, funny enough, Brent, you and I usually do not necessarily agree on a lot of things. I mean, on most spectrums, it's funny how, in all reality, like I could say Captain America, you say no Iron Man. I could say Iron Man, you say no Captain America.
Oh, I forgot
it's
about
funny
Civil
how
War.
it's funny, and of course I agree with you, Captain America, in terms of who was right, who was wrong in the movies. But we can go and tell Sky that right now and make him cry again.
Go on, get out of here. Get out of here, you animal.
You were hammering him for like an hour and a half. I remember he started off going, yeah, no, Iron Man's on the right. And I remember you were like, oh, and you literally just squashed him like a bug. And I was on your side, so I had no problem letting it happen. Yeah. So I never once thought I'd kind of be your hype man. Like, yeah, Brent.
You come out, get him, what? Word. Get him. Oh, he didn't. Look, he ain't got nothing to say. Look at him.
you see Sky just there like,
I was very passionate about Civil War. I was very passionate about Civil War. Yeah. But, and it's great. It's just, I just want to show how much I appreciate these, Dick. These are just great conversations, man. And God, I look forward to them every week. They're just fantastic. Just every single week I love sitting down and just doing this with you.
I literally get giddy whenever we get a talk because, and like I said, we call each other about 15 minutes, 10 minutes beforehand. We go live and we say, all right, we're going to talk about this and this. And then we don't say, okay, well, what we need to talk about this and this for is this. No, we say, we're talking about Wanda-vision and we're talking about Harry Potter. And then we just kind of do it. I love it.
I love it too.
But anyways, my friends, we're going to pick for the next topic. Speaking of topics.
Okay, come on. The universe, you gave me two good, like right out the gate where I was just ecstatic. So let's go. Let's get a good one, Nicholas.
All right, let's do the Harry Potter soundtrack next, everyone.
Please. I mean, you can't argue that though. That's a really good composing. That's great.
Yeah. Oh no, and music's in here. Composing. I will tell people to the end of days. I think that sound in general, audio in general, is more important than video. But that's just my opinion. Mm-hmm. But anyways.
It's bold. I gotta itch my hand. Sorry.
I just want to also shout out my friend William Du Bois. He gave me this cup. And he was a badass Air Force man.
We love him.
He was a fighter pilot. This badass man. Love you, buddy. All right. So, Brent, hopefully you like this topic. Good.
Come on, help me out.
We got Quentin Tarantino films.
Oh, nice. That'll be fun. Because those are
finally we can get back in the we can actually talk about his films instead of like the reason why I felt like it wasn't Lord of the Rings. It'd be more like, so Nick, honestly, man, Kill Bill, Kill 1 or 2, or what's his best revenge movie or anything? There's so much.
What's his best conversation piece? The fuck you mean you don't tip? Yeah, Mr. Pink doesn't tip. What do you mean? Is it Mr. Pink? Mr. Pink? Oh, the fuck you mean you don't tip? Oh my God, just to touch on it, the conversations in his films. I would love to know if he writes them word for word, or if he gives his actors like. Yes. Does he do word for word, or does he give his actors? Yes,
I found out it's one of those things when you are in a Quentin Tarantino movie, and he does like he loves suggestions. Don't get me wrong, he loves suggestions, but he will expect you to do it word for word. But then you have people who come up and talk to him, and they'll say, "Hey, well, does it make sense for this to happen?" And he goes, "Ah." So yeah, he's definitely open to suggestions, but. From what I hear, people are excited to literally not say anything else because they know that Quentin Tarantino dialogue
It's great dialogue. It is so captivating because it's so... You would never think a basic conversation could be so captivating. And,
for 5-6 minutes of not taking the camera off these characters and you're sitting there going, why am I not bored right now?
It's a stable shot. Yeah. It's 2 or 3 people talking. The perfect example is the... you know what they call Big Mac in France? Like... It's a 3-minute dumb conversation. It doesn't mean it's a Royale with cheese. And it's no one gives a shit. You shouldn't care about that conversation, but it's one of the most like staples of cinema. It is a staple that you will recall whenever you see a Quentin Tarantino film. It's one that sticks with you, and it's just a stable shot back and forth between these two characters. That's it. Nothing else happens throughout the whole thing. And I can't understand. Is it because even then in the film, you don't know they're hitmen? You have no idea that they're out to do a job. You have no clue what
they're talking about foot massages and like, is it cheating if you give foot massage to a girl? And they're literally having discussions that you and I would have on a regular basis. And then all of a sudden they open a door and start, putting guns in people's face. I'm like, what the hell is happening?
Say what again? Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
I can't wait because Tarantino films are so, even if you don't like them, they're so special to cinema. They are so damn special to cinema because I think any good director, any good writer, particularly that is looking to make something unique or special, should at least watch 1 or 2 Tarantino films alone to see like what can be done with engaging characters, normal people in either extreme or strange situations is the best way to put it. I think extreme is the better situation.
And it shows a certain comedy about their situation too, which I always like as well. Like whenever Jules, John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, they accidentally shoot that guy in the head, and then they blow brains all over him in Pulp Fiction, and so they have to call the wolf, and then he comes and fixes their situation, and then he gives them clothes that they're wearing, like this little t-shirt and shorts, and they just look completely like vulnerable, and they look like I'm not scared of you at all.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love it. I love it.
So awesome. That's there. Okay, universe. That's what I was after. Thank you. I appreciate you instead of making me feel like I did.
We're gonna talk about Quentin Tarantino directing Harry Potter.
Oh my God, that'd be the darkest. He just walks up with his wand, Expelliarmus, and it just blows off somebody. But it's after like a 9-minute conversation about like how the paintings in the hall are for some reason askew and why they're that way, and it's just an hour of that. Fuck you, mediocre.
It's funny. I was being silly, but in all honesty, if he, I'm sure he would probably do something special with it.
Tarantino could.
But a lot of people are scared of him touching Star Trek. That's why he hasn't done it yet. Well, a lot of people are like, oh, you're just gonna make it rated R, and then just make a lot of your typical Tarantino things. And I'm thinking, well, I'm sure he'll kind of church it up a little bit, just because he has to be somewhat faithful to Star Trek. But I mean, Star Trek, it already got a facelift once, and it did just fine. So I mean,
and I think it'd be exciting. I think he could bring a new level of tension to Star Trek, and I think Tarantino handles tension very well. In fact,
that's his best quality. His villains too. His villains and his heroes, but his villains are he makes his villains so spicy and rich, and I love it.
Yeah. So his I think if he did Star Trek, I think we'd be in for a real special treat. I think we'd see something more akin to like them being on a hostile planet and maybe they're captured and then they have to get their way out of it somehow. That kind of thing I could see Tarantino really
a mind game, like a big old mind game.
Yeah.
Like I love it. It's not just, and that's one thing that's refreshing about a lot of movies you and I talk about, is when you see a character in like a raw format. It's always nice, because typically, like James Bond, we always talk about that. We hate to see the typical like, oh, I'm going to jump and I'm going to always make it. What if you don't make it?
Yeah,
I mean,
be a human.
I love it. I love it.
Show me you're human. Yeah, I think that's a big conversation. All right, you need to get back to your wonderful, loving family. What does Marcellus Wallace look like?
What?
Sorry. It's in our chat.
Like
it's in. Does he look like a bitch?
I said, does he look like a bitch? No. Then why you trying to fuck him like a bitch, Brett? I didn't. Yes, you did, Brett. Yes, you did. And the only person that fuck him is Mrs. Marcellus Wallace.
Oh my God. Does he look like a bitch? Oh my God. What a film.
Absolutely. Just go to our YouTube channel, the Nerd Frenzy Podcast, or go to our email, thenerdfrenzypodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Also, Brent, I'm just going to start putting up reviews as well of movies and TV shows. I'm gonna start putting it up there, and so everyone just please watch those. It'll be a lot shorter, so it'll be probably a 10-minute long, and you'll get some. I'm thinking I'm gonna do Mandalorian first. I'm gonna do the second season. So, and I got Cobra Kai season 3 coming up after that. So yeah, throw suggestions my way. But
I love it.
Anyways, my friend Brent, as always, I love you, buddy. Thank you for everything. I love doing this. I get giddy before, during, and afterwards I'm laying in bed just like almost like I had an energy drink. I'm just sitting there going.
Yeah, I feel bad because I keep Crystal up on the nights I do this, but there are times where like afterwards where I want to like pick her brain a little bit with what she's heard me yell and say and everything else. But I know if I do that, we'll be up an extra 2 hours just because I'm like, yeah, but because she knows how I get. But I love doing it, man. I love it. I love that we get to sit here. Like I said, whether people watch or not, I don't care. I just want to sit here and have these conversations with you, and I'm glad that I get to steal you for an hour and sometimes an hour and a half just for me. Araceli can I mean, she's wonderful, and I really appreciate her. But I just glad that for this hour, I get to steal you away from all things important in your life, and it just focuses on me. And I like being the center of attention, so it's perfect.
Selfish for the win, everyone.
That's what I'm talking about, dude. Be
I like
selfish.
it.
Yep. Express how much you don't like Harry Potter. Give it to him. No, don't. I'm kidding. It's a joke. Haha. Haha. It's fine.
Oh.
Nick, we gotta get out of here. We gotta go. This is the Minnesota
All
goodbye.
right.
We're
I
done.
love all you guys. Have a great night. And Brent, I'll talk to you later, my bud.
All right, buddy.
Love you guys.
The Nerd Frenzy Podcast.